Absolutely, absolutely. Joining us on the broadcast is also my colleague Parikshit Luthra. He's with us on the show. Parikshit, one aspect of this report, as Pallavi pointed out, pervasive corruption. The coal block allocation, the Commonwealth Games, the event of Commonwealth Games was marred by widespread corruption. This report goes on to note. It also talks about inflation. Now, inflation is one issue that not just the economists, the corridors of RBI or other fiscal institutions have been discussing, but this has been a topic widely discussed by the opposition parties as well. The government claims that even when it comes to the issue of inflation, the Modi government has outperformed.
Absolutely. This government has been speaking about a white paper for a few years now. In fact, it has gone on to say that we would have brought it in 2015 or 2016, but that would have shown India in very poor light. We've done that now because we've corrected the wrongs of the UPA era between 2004 and 2014. Now, we have been looking at different aspects of this white paper. He speaks about very high inflation, double-digit inflation during the UPA era. It speaks about a high fiscal deficit. It speaks about a banking crisis, a balance of payments crisis at that point in time. And over the last 10 years, this government, that is the finance minister, has also given a sense of the reforms that were carried out. She compared that to the UPA era when reforms that were needed at the state level, at the central level, were not really carried out. But when Prime Minister Modi came to power, there were reforms for women, there were reforms for business, reforms on the tax side, and all of that has led it to become much easier to do business in India. We speak about the export potential of India right now, the PLI schemes, which have attracted investments worldwide, and they have given a comparative chart. For example, if you speak about inflation, they have spoken about almost 8.2% inflation during the UPA era compared to 5% inflation right now. And on the whole, they have said that the capital expenditure in the budget has also been going up in a robust manner.
Exactly. Parikshit, on that point of capital expenditure, because capital expenditure actually denotes the amount of money government is pumping into the economy. This is to create assets, your roads, your railways, different institutions, and how you're augmenting the different kinds of infrastructure that exist in our country, including digital infrastructure, on which the Prime Minister has laid a lot of emphasis upon. Well, this simple, chart will explain to you. Let's have a look at these numbers. The capital expenditure as a percentage of the total expenditure in 2003-2004 was only about at 31%. So if your budget is of 100 rupees, your capex was about 31. That dipped. Now, this was also the year of the transition of the government. That's when UPA 1 came to power. In 2013-14, the capex, so for a budget of 100 rupees, you were only spending about 16%, 16 rupees, for example, for creating new assets of capital expenditure. That jumped in 2023-24 to about 28%. That's an aggregate that you're looking at of these years. And that significant jump that you've seen over the years is about creating new infrastructure. I want to once again cut across back to Pallavi, who's with us on the broadcast. Pallavi, a bit more about this particular document that has been presented and how it talks about a series of scams that unfolded during the UPA era and were perhaps the prime cause of the downfall in the economy that we saw in those years. At least that's what this white paper argues.
I remember when 2004 the UPA came to power, that was also on the plank that India is not shining. India shining was a campaign of the predecessor of Dr. Manmohan Singh, which was the Atal Bihari Vajpayee Sarkar. And consistently from 2004, and one of the main reasons why Dr. Manmohan Singh was also made the Prime Minister was the pitch which was then made by the UPA government is that we have to correct the economy. The economy is not shining and it's just a few people who are shining, and therefore it was a smoke screen which was created by the NDA or the Vajpayee Sarkar. Now look at what this white paper says. The white paper says actually that the government which came to power in 2004 did inherit a robust economy. The economy was actually thriving. But in the next 10 years, they made a complete, absolute mess of it. It was a question of lost opportunity. There was funds which were not being given to those sectors which were crying for those funds. The treasury was actually robust. It was healthy. But slowly by slowly, because of the corruption and the faulty policies and the myopic vision, the entire purpose of the government coming to power was completely defeated. And very quickly, before I go across to you, because you were talking about capex, again the report talks about the poor policy planning and execution resulting in large unspent funds for many of the social sector schemes. Now this is important very quickly, Anusha, because that's what capital expenditure increase is all about. You use it for infrastructural developments. which is the hallmark which the government has mentioned in the vote on account.
Yeah.
And the point that they are making over here is the capex was not being utilized by the UPA government.
All right, on that point of rural economies, how much government has actually done when it comes to the social welfare schemes, this is an interesting graph to really look at. Now, this report, the white paper claims that there was an underspending in about 14 major social and rural ministries. If you look at this particular graph, this is actually indicative of the welfare schemes that were running across the country. Between 2004 and 14, BE means the budgeted expenses, 6.4% of the overall expenditure, and in 2014 to 2024, it's about 0.9%. That means the amount of money that was spent was much larger in these years compared to this. The smaller the number here in this graph, the more the expenditure is. That's what these numbers really are about. Let me try and cut across to my colleague Aman Sharma as well. He's with us on the broadcast. Aman, of course, when it comes to this critical issue of social welfare schemes, the Prime Minister highlighted that whether you like it or not, we will give a nudge to all the people in this country who actually need it. Whether it's the Ujjwala Yojana or various other social schemes, the government says we know the intricate balance that we need to strike between development and giving these benefits to the poor and underdeveloped of the country.
But clearly, Anusha, see, the Prime Minister made that very clear on the floor of the House also, then because the criticism has been that if you have brought, so many crores of people outside multi-dimensional property, why do you need to give them a free anaj?
Sure.
To 80 crore people? The Prime Minister clearly saying that, someone who's come out of the ICU needs still care. So we are trying to support these people. We don't want them to slip back into poverty.
Yeah.
So that has been the larger, the message from the Prime Minister. We speak of the white paper. I think significantly the way the government has drafted the white paper, the three parts of the white paper, I think a very meticulous exercise. Part one, going into the part that, what was actually the macroeconomic situation under the UPA government.
Yeah.
Clearly, the government making a very strong point that when its government, the NDA government of Atal Bihari Vajpayee went out of power, the UPA government inherited a healthy economy. We were growing at 8% and they make it a point that it was a healthy economy ready for more reforms. But the UPA government, the UPA leadership, which takes credit for the 1991 reforms, abandoned them after coming to power in 2004. I think very important point to say that though they take pride that they brought the liberalized economy in 1991, when they came to power in 2004, they abandoned it. They frittered away the gains which was made by the Atal Bihari Vajpayee government. The part two, I think, is very interesting, where they're giving a current status of the various corruption scams of the UPA government. Now, this is the corruption scams are the ones on the basis of which Mr. Narendra Modi came to power in 2014. The government really telling people that you can't forget about their corruption scams. Many of them are actually under trial right now. Be it the coal scam, be it the 2G scam, which is an affiliate code. It has listed out, in fact, over a dozen corruption scams under the UPA government, which are still under trial. And number three, of course, is the government's picture that how it has turned around the economy. Be it on the various fronts, and especially I think also the section towards the end, Anusha, where
the lost opportunities,
the lost opportunities and the various schemes under which how the situation has changed, be it on tap water, be it on electrification, be it on houses. Government has given proper figures here. So I think it is a very effective, strong counter to what we saw earlier in the day, the black paper by the Congress, which looked more like messaging by the Congress on broader terms. This is very specific with facts and figures, and I think that is what the government is trying to show.